Welcome to the next lesson, the lease contract explained. Now, this is a pretty simple explanation of the lease contract. I really just want to go over three parts or three factors that play into your lease contract and the payment you pay and who actually controls each part of the contract. So there's parts that the leasing company or the finance company controls that'll be the same regardless of which dealership you choose to do business with. And then there's the part of the contract that the dealer controls, and it does matter which dealership you choose and how good you negotiate the price of the car. So really just understanding the difference between what's dealer controlled and what's leasing company controlled is important when we're moving forward into shopping for multiple dealers to find the best deal. So first, let's talk about the capitalized cost. There's something known as the gross capitalized cost, which is the total price of the car. So this includes the selling price of the car that you negotiate with the dealer. This is the part the dealer has control over because they decide how much they sell the car for. And then anything that's rolled into that payments and broken up across the course of the contract. So any upfront taxes that are rolled into the price of the car, any dealer fees, any add-ins like dealer service packages or extended warranties or anything you decide to purchase and add into the price, and also any negative equity. So if you're trading in a car that upside down, you have to add that balance to the price of the car. So all of that increases the price of the car that you're buying. And anything that reduces the down payment, anything that reduces that cost, leads you to what's called the net capitalized cost, which is the final price after all reductions. So reductions to the gross capitalized cost are like down payments if you come out of pocket with a cash down payment, or if you're trading in a car with positive equity. So that positive equity serves the same as like a down payment in cash. It just reduces the price of the car. So you're wanting to find a car that has the lowest net capitalized cost, and that is what you're negotiating with the dealership. So you want to find a car that which dealer is willing to sell the car for the lowest starting price and have the least amount of add-ins that, above and beyond what you do or don't want. So, the least amount of fees, and all of that. So you're trying to find a car with the lowest price, and that is the capitalized cost of the car. Now, next we'll move on to the residual value. We've talked about this before, but the residual value is the estimated value of the vehicle at the end of the lease term. It's what you're paying the car down to. So when you get that net capitalized cost, you're paying it from there down to the residual value. So the shorter that distance, the smaller your lease payment. The larger that distance, the higher your lease payment. So the dealer has no control over this. This comes from the leasing company. So it really would be the same regardless of which dealership you choose. So it doesn't matter which dealer you go with, the residual value for the same car coming from the same leasing company should be the same across the board. Next up, we have the money factor. The money factor determines your rent charge. It's a very small decimal, and it's like the interest rate on a loan. So it's similar to an APR. It's the amount you are paying to borrow the money to buy the car. You don't have to do these kind of calculations, but just if you wanted to know, the money factor is a very small decimal. In order to get it into like a format where you can more easily compare it to an interest rate, you multiply the very small decimal by 2,400. And that'll give you like a 5 point something or a 6 point something or 7 point whatever. And that's more comparable to an interest rate. This is also something that's determined by the leasing company, not the dealership. So oftentimes when you're getting quotes from dealers, you'll hear dealers say something like, oh, there's just not a good lease deal on this. And what they're trying to communicate is the money factor and the residual value are not great coming from the leasing company, and there's nothing the dealer can do about it because they can't sell the car for any less. So they're blaming the high quote on the terms of the lease that they don't control. Now, in order to verify that is very hard, and we don't have to. And that's what the beauty of this course is going to give you, is we don't have to take their word for it. Is it a good or bad lease deal? We're going to get multiple quotes from all their competitor dealers, and we'll be able to see through the price ranges the other dealers give us if that's a true statement or not. If another dealer can give us a much lower price with a better, lower lease payment, then it's obvious that it wasn't really the lease terms, it was the starting price of the car. And if all other dealers are doing similar and can't give any lower, then maybe they're right. And maybe the lease terms from the finance company are not great. And in that case, it might be a time to move on to choice 2 or choice 3 and shop other brands and other manufacturers to see if their lease deals are better. And this leads us into your lease payment and how the lease payment is actually structured. So That difference between the net capitalized cost, the starting price of the car, and the residual value is how much you have to pay during your lease. And so a portion of your payment, known as the depreciation, is what gets applied each month as you pay to lower the cost of the car closer and closer to the residual value. But not all of your payment is depreciation. Just like we said before, the money factor is like the interest rate, and that determines what your rent charge is. So your rent charge is the portion of your payment that the leasing company keeps. Similar idea to principal and interest. In a lease, it's depreciation and rent charge. But every time you borrow money, most of the money goes to the balance you owe, and then some of the payment goes to the lender. And so on a lease, instead of paying like a daily interest like you would on a loan, it's a monthly assessment. It's included in your monthly payment. So each month, as you make a payment, some of the money goes to depreciation and some of the money goes to the lender. So depreciation plus rent charge equals your lease payment. A big mistake that a lot of people I've talked to that are trying to do their own calculations and figure out like how much have I paid on this car? What should the payoff be at the end? They make the mistake of thinking the full lease payment is depreciation, forgetting that a portion of their payment each month goes to the bank. So as an example, let's say a person has a $500 lease payment and they pay $500 each month for 36 months. They can't take $500 times 36 and get a number as to be like, that's how much I've paid. And then they subtract that from the starting price and they get a number that's lower than their residual. And they're like, hey, wait a minute, I've paid more on this car. Why is my residual a little higher? And they're forgetting that, a portion of their $500 payment is rent and it doesn't go to the car. So let's just say in that example, the rent charge is $100. So each month, if you pay 500, 400 of it go to the car and 100 of it goes to the leasing company. So if you want to do the math over 36 months, you would do 400 times 36 to get to the residual. And that extra 100 a month is another $3,600. That's all the finance charge, the rent charge, that all goes to the leasing company. So that's real common. You don't get full value depreciation for every payment. You have to pay for the use of the money, and that's how it works. The leasing company keeps the rent charge just like they would interest on a loan. All right, that's the end of this lesson. I will see you in the next one.